All right.
We're prepping. We got it.
Very good.
Dun, dun, dun. All right.
All right.
All right. There's that.
I got some pretty intense lights here.
All right. Here we are. Okay. Let me get my thing. I can see the chat here. Let me open my screen up a little bit. When you guys out there in the world can hear us getting ready here. And whoa, it's the illusion here reporting from somewhere on spaceship Earth. It's Sober Wednesdays. We have a guest today. We have Jeb here. And as you know, Sober Wednesdays dedicated to those who struggle out there on spaceship Earth, whether it's drugs, alcohol, food, gambling, love addiction, overeating, whatever it may be that's getting between you or God. That's what we're here to do, is provide you an hour where you can chat amongst yourselves, hear some experience, strength, and hope, and hopefully get to the next size of whatever's blocking your connection with God. So as we do here, we do like to open up. You want to lead us in a serenity prayer there, Jeb?
Yes. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Amen. Amen to that, dude. So, and then the only thing we really, so this, anyone out there, this is not an AA meeting. This is that we use the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as a template. You can insert whatever your problem is for the word alcohol or alcoholic. And there is a solution here. It's worked for many people. And let's do it. So I read chapter 5, how it works, and then Jeb's going to get in there and tear it up till he's done tearing it up, and then we'll open it up to the chat, and we'll just freeform it till 7:30. So here it goes. Chapter 5, how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. But some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What in order? I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. Amen.
Wonderful.
All right. So anyone want to chime in with their time or where they're at real quick before we cut Jeb loose to share his experience, strength, and hope? I forgot there's a little bit of a delay here. So
Yes, I pulled it up too, so I can see the YouTube version.
all right. Well, how about you just jump in there, Jeb, and
Jumping in.
give it to us with both barrels.
Jeb, addict, alcoholic, and I am a extremist in many things. And so the 12 steps have helped me immeasurably. I needed to come to AA. I also go to a couple other fellowships that have helped change my life. Ever since I was like, I'll start at the very beginning. When I was ever since being a young child, I've always felt connected to something super powerful, super close. I always felt like I was surrounded by something above just like the mundane, but I felt somehow also separated from the heart of that. Hamish, you talked a few weeks ago, I think it was, about kind of comparing that to when Indiana Jones was looking at the cobra when he was, it's sort of like God's right here, but just not, I couldn't get to it. And so I always had this clear dissatisfaction from the youngest age. And I always wanted, when I had something awesome, I wanted more of it. I remember even when I was like 4 years old, I was longing for the good old days before my 2-year-old, my sister was born when I was like a younger. And so for me, my mom is awesome. She's still living, and I was born in 1973. So I think I'm just a few years younger than you. But when she raised me believing in higher power, she raised me believing in it as something more personal and like on a cellular level than just something that I might go and see kind of separated at an altar once a week or so forth. And I grew up in New Hampshire, born in Michigan, but grew up in New Hampshire, and grew up in the middle of nowhere with not much. I had a couple pairs of clothes where I was super low rent, moved around a ton, moved like 20 some odd times before I was out of high school. And I always felt like I was self-conscious, kind of different. And I always was in this extreme of trying to feel that higher power. I wanted to feel God like it was like a sugar rush, or like something that would just be mighty inside of me. And if I couldn't feel that even from a young age, 8 9 years old, I was looking to end suffering by connecting to something high. I'm sure my mom helped plant the seeds from that. But from a very young age, when I couldn't, I would try to replace that search. If I couldn't just feel the feeling of being cradled by like this quiescent womb-like feeling of satisfaction, I would try to replace it with adrenaline sports. I would try to replace it with impressing the ladies, the girls, impressing other people, and just doing extreme things. So my throughout when I was about 14, I know somewhere I heard that you spent some time in Santa Cruz. I spent a little time. We moved around. I lived in the mountains of Santa Cruz a little bit. That's where I first discovered weed. Discovered LSD right around then. I was always kind of against alcohol initially, figuring it would be something that would dumb me down. I wanted to ride the snake to the lake. Jim Morrison was my big man. I wanted to be like him. And so I wanted stuff that would help me break through, help me get closer. And when so from that young age, just in high school and junior high, just partying a ton with tons of hallucinogens and so forth. I would occasionally, like, I'd start getting drunk a little bit, but I always felt kind of guilty. Like, I didn't prefer the alcohol vibe, as I felt like it was taking me too far away from higher power, because drugs and alcohol from a young age were a search for something that would end the suffering. I don't know if it was the suffering of just being alive, human, just good things happen, I want more, bad things happen, I don't want that. So I know drugs and alcohol initially, it was more than just escapism. It was trying to help me figure out a path to end suffering. I was super influenced by William Blake and Artaud and Carlos Castaneda and all those dudes who were using hallucinogens and so forth to get some kind of greater vision. So by the time I was about 20 years old or something, I had been institutionalized for a few months for just partied way too hard. And I was on all the drugs, just tons of acid, got puddled. I went to a lot of Fish and Dead shows back then, and it got to be right around then. It got to be this dichotomy where I was trying to use drugs and alcohol to get to the end of suffering or some greater vision, but also I started to get this like nervous, like I was clenching, like I'd be Harrison Ford trying too hard to get through that plexiglass. And then I would start to get loaded and to start to use opiates and so forth as escape from the journey. All right. So more and more I started using, like, here was this dude trying to break through to the other side and find the ultimate quest for freedom and enlightenment in my own way. And part of me, I'll say this right now, man, is part of me, I think, was trying to find like the answers, like to be always perceive the spirit world, not just to end suffering, but so I could have this dopamine fix above the others. Like, oh, all these other fools, they're going to college, they're doing this, but I got the ultimate, I got the ultimate secret. So I think there was some ego behind all that too. But so, you know, they say in AA, they say it's fun, then it's fun with problems, and it's problems with fun, and then it's just problems. Like, I've heard that a bunch. So when I was institutionalized and I was hospitalized, my body was pretty broken. I was on life support for a while. I was in and out of this dimension, and yet up to that point, I'd say 90% of my drug use was hallucinogens, maybe, well, give or take. A lot of it was weed and other stuff, but and some opiates to kind of take the edge off. But starting around then, it got to be, when I got out of that, man, is this too rabbit hole? Is this like
no, dude, just go in.
Because I'm like, you know, I've been in speaker shares where like 15 minutes later, I'm like, then I got out of high school and I'm like, whoa, my time's up. But man, my whole life, my whole journey, which, like, I am an addict and alcoholic, like preceding drugs and alcohol is sort of what I'm saying. And so much of my journey was trying to find a geographic from what is. I guess that's what I was trying to say about, like, using hallucinogens to find this ultimate reality greater than me, but also as a way to escape. I wanted to like the geographic. I want to take a spiritual geographic. I want to take a demographic geographic. And man, like, I changed everything over and over. If my mom had us move 20 some odd times before I was 18 years old, I continued to do so, from when I left the East Coast around 18, 19 years old, I didn't have a house. I didn't really live anywhere until I was almost 30. It was always backpacks. I had girlfriends everywhere. Uh, I had, it was a good time. It was a good time. There was fun there. And a lot of that time, man, especially after the hospitalization, when the doctor said, if you're so close to being spun permanently, in their own words, if I take any more hallucinogens, like, forget about it, I'm done. So what do? I went to Eugene, I went to some dead shows, and I had to prove them wrong. But when I tripped that time, it was my last time taking acid, the drug itself told me that my ticket was no good. Like, I actually heard that. It was like, you've been here, you've been to this realm hundreds and hundreds of times. This is a realm that exists, but I had to try to figure out how to get there kind of naturally, right? And so, dude, I started to slow down a little bit from like 19 or so to 24, 25. Spent most of my time in the woods. I would go in, I'd work for a couple, I'd sling a hammer or do some kind of carpentry for a little while, come out, like, save up some bucks, go hiking for a few months, do odd jobs, some masonry, whatever, go hiking for a few months. And I was so, like, feeling so fragile that I just wanted to sit still and try to figure out what was this all about. And during those years, I wasn't using hallucinogens anymore after the last time I took them. I wasn't drinking, like, alcohol. I might have some wine now and then, and I wanted to be a monk, man. I wanted to go on to leave it all behind, but a monk in, like, in a dramatic way. And I would have been a monk, and I'm kind of tradition non-discriminate. Like, it could have been a cat, like a Franciscan monk, or it could have been some kind of Theravada Buddhist thing. But I just wanted the extremes of sitting there, and I don't care if I die, and I just want to be with reality. You said something too one time about finding God in the bees, or you said it's just one line. I've listened to a lot of but just like finding, like, sometimes God is something that's way out there, sometimes it's way in here, sometimes it's something that's right. It's just day-to-day stuff, and sometimes it's just watching patterns in nature. But that's what I was doing those years. I was just sitting there, and I probably would have stayed in the woods longer, but I'd get horny. I'd run out of weed, and of course I'd come out for food and so forth. But I tell you, man, during those phases, or most of my life, that was a geographic, trying to figure out how to find God through in a very kind of old school way of slow self-destruction, of not really eating, like, or hardly eating properly. And I was hiking a lot, but I was doing a lot of the whole time, man, I was doing so much passive aggressive stuff that also, like, my addiction initially wasn't about alcohol. It was about doing stuff that was going to be extreme, that would either kill me and give me the ultimate geographic death, or it would help me feel like my existence is justified, and or find the palace of the eternal while trying. And so all those months, man, in the woods, it was still, I still feel later I grew up, I felt like it was still a form of geographic. It might have looked noble being hiding out in there, but I still see it was a form of a geographic. And I kind of moved forward a little bit, man. Then I was like, all right, the mystic life of letting myself fall apart in the woods was working. But then when my glasses prescription ran out and I got all these cavities and I'm feeling pain, I wasn't quite feeling it so much anymore. And so I tried some other forms of extremism. I joined Earth First, the radical environmental organization, did a ton of stuff with them, got super messed up, man. I fell off a cliff, broke all kinds of things in my back. Initially, I couldn't even walk. And, court ordered not to be in any place public for a couple of years. And then it was not even allowed in public sidewalks or that's it, only sidewalks, not parks or anything. I switched gears a little bit there. I that's when with my back broken and me unable to hardly walk, eventually hardly walk, that's when I started really feeling sorry for myself, really feeling suicidal, really feeling like I had charged the gates of heaven and I failed. I was like 27 at the time, or 26, 27 at the time. I decided the ultimate, like, I just wanted to do everything that I'd never done as far as digging deep for the dopamine. I moved to Chicago, went to theater school. It was, to me, it was a form of suicide, right? Started practicing stand-up comedy, and I was on stage every night for about 12 years, 13, 14 years as a stand-up comic. And it was this dichotomy. I say it's this dichotomy, whereas I had these urges to be pure, to get close to higher power. And I also had these urges to have the most fun that I could possibly have and hopefully leave some kind of legacy that could get left behind. And this is when the alcohol started coming in more and more and more. I was starting to get free drinks every night at the comedy clubs, and I felt like I had failed being on a spiritual quest, because here I am. How can initially I was like, I'll tell stories. They'll uplifting. They'll help the environment. My stories will help the environment. They'll help inspire people to relate to pain and maybe find some humor in it and break through a little bit. So I had some kind of good intentions there, and dude, that got lost, man. That got lost, man. Like, I found myself 34 years old, 30, 35, 36, 37 years old, touring. I was in all over the country in these little comedy clubs, but just trying to get to some like cop joke, dick joke, some kind of sex joke or something that any person in like a real hillbilly kind of setting could relate to, like, real quick. And I lost all my narrative edge. I lost my whole soul behind it. And also I was drinking every night. Sometimes it'd just be a lot of times there's 2 or 3 drinks, but man, I was loaded every night for all those years. And minus the time, I'll tell you, when I kept trying to get sober, I saw throughout these times, I was hurting. At that point anymore, it wasn't about I wasn't even trying to find God anymore. I wasn't trying. Sure, I was still trying to find some legacy, like, oh, somebody will discover me. I'll be on Tosh.0 or whatever, and I'll get discovered, and and all this stuff. But I wasn't looking for. I just wanted pleasure, and I wanted each day to end. And I wake up in the morning saying, "Oh gosh, man, here I am, so suffering." And I went to a meditation retreat at one point. Kind of around there, I was like 24. I went to a chiropractic who suggested I go to a Vipassana, these 10-day silent meditation retreats. And I went there, and the whole thing is, like, you're gonna sit with your feelings. It's simple. It's not, there's nothing too out there with it. You're gonna sit with your feelings for about 15 hours a day for
Sure.
10 days, without talking. And and you're not gonna use intoxicants. And I was so broken, man. This chiropractor was, by the way, brilliant guy. He saw me for free, and he was like, I had nothing, man. I had no money for like that decade. I was just like, when I would go, I'd work a little bit. I'd go to the woods. I'd get some bag of cornmeal and a fishing rod or whatever. But when I went to that chiropractic, he saw me. He said, go to the Possum Retreat. That'll be your payment. First time I was there was 10 days off of the weed, which I rarely did, man. I smoked. In my 20s, I smoked weed up until I started doing stand-up comedy around 27. I smoked weed every night since I was 14, but I didn't always have alcohol. But it was 27 till about 40 when I had alcohol and weed all the time at the same time. So right around the time I went to the Vipassana retreat, around 24, 25 years old, was 10 days off of weed. And I was like, I got it. I felt like I had almost like that Harrison Ford thing you talked about, where for anyone listening that wasn't at that, it was only a week or so ago, but it's like he was separated. He was while they're shooting the film, it looked like the Cobra was right there, but there was actually plexiglass separating Harrison Ford. So me being separated from the higher power, like it's right here, but I just couldn't get to it. And so it was the first time in that meditation retreat where I felt I had this serenity It's just accepting, man. It wasn't pleasant. It wasn't dopamine. It wasn't, I'm chasing the high, I'm chasing the low. It was, I had feelings, memories, resentments, all kinds of stuff coming and going, coming and going. And sometimes I would just daydream for hours, and I'd get mad at myself for that. I pull it back. But I realized, like, throughout all of this, I'll put this in my own experience, like that, I was on a date with my higher power right then. I was on a date with higher, like I could say it might not have looked pretty, but it was like I was feeling reality, man. And I want to like definitely make sure I want to kind of put a bow on this drunkalog in the how I got sober. But my higher power, at least in that context, is reality. Reality is my higher power. Reality is my higher power. That doesn't mean it's boring. It doesn't mean it's without like weird coincidences or things where I feel like I'm being cradled by a force that's propelling me forward. But reality is often it's my, dude, when I can't, if I'm like, okay, it's the group, it's an entity I can talk to or whatever. When I can't feel that, it's like reality is my higher power. I was sitting with reality that 10 days. And it occurred to me that every time I tried to go there while also using drugs and alcohol, it was like bringing a third wheel with me on my date with my higher power. So I got out of that retreat, decided to quit, and then I can flash forward about 10 years of going through this cycle of feeling like I'm miserable, I'm suicidal, my art is failing, I can't get my thoughts together for stage, I'm not motivated, and then I better stop the suffering, I'm gonna get sober, and then I'm white knuckling it for a number of weeks or months. I got 7 months one time, and boy, I was miserable. My friends, I wouldn't go out with my friends. Hey, you want to come out? No, I gotta go home and meditate. Gotta meditate, you know.
Yeah.
And all this, and I'm like, no, I gotta meditate. And then, but every time I would be sober enough to, get a glimpse of what it feels like to actually feel reality, to touch base, to wake up with the feelings that reality, God, higher power gave me, whether I like him or not. Every time I lost touch of that, I'd try to get back to it. And, I'd go to meditate. I went to that meditation retreat numerous times. I've been there like 7 times, 8, if you include the times I donated my time to work for free in the kitchen, the service. I probably spent a good 9 months out of my life at those silent retreats and stuff. I was like, those are my people. Those are my sober people. A lot of those people are what we call normies, who not all of them. There's a lot of people that struggled, but I kept on. I needed a group like AA. I needed a group like MA. I go to Marijuana Anonymous as well, and I needed these groups where the drumbeat, where the theme is reminding ourselves, step one is reminding ourselves that we're powerless. Because when I was around the normies, meditating was great. They're meditating and whatever. I can't compare myself, but they got highs and lows, and maybe they're quantumous, and they kind of let it go. For me, man, like I have such a sly inner addict. I have such and my inner addict, man, is like I'll kind of get out of the chronological narrative here, but sometimes I keep on using that narrative that you talk about, or that you mentioned at least once, about God's right here, but I'm just separated by like a wall, but it's right there and I can't get to it. Sometimes I think it's a little bit different for me. It's more like when you have like some weed, and I'll just say that weed in this analogy, this bad analogy, is my higher power, but it's a bunch of shake, and then lint gets mixed in, like it's mixed together. Like, so like I know that higher power is all in and out, it's in every fiber of me. But sometimes I don't know, like sometimes or be more like Jeff Goldblum in the Fly, when like he goes, and then all of a sudden the fly is part of his DNA. Like, so sometimes I'm like, is that me, or is that my higher power? Like my conscience is like my inner voice, like helps me know if I'm actually following my higher power and so forth. But man, my addict is pretty sly. It's like, oh, I deserve a break. I deserve a mental break. Or, oh, it's just chess. right? Or it's just for you, I don't know, like it could be, oh, it's just Legos, right? Like, I don't know if you've gotten in your Lego phase, like, so like, where all of a sudden you're like, I'm not going to meditate. I'm going to skip the meeting. I'm like, I'm going to reschedule my other things, and I just deserve it. I just need a break today. I just, and dude, like my addict will do slow and steady like an addict. Like, I want to do slow and steady, so slow and steady that it's like a Jeep, like an all-terrain vehicle that can go up anything. I'm going to really dig in and get like the slowest and steadiest. Like, I will try to out-serene, I'll try to out-serene myself, and I'll crash and I'll burn and I'll relapse. And so my drunk-a-law kind of proceeds to where I had, by the time I was getting close to 40, I was doing pretty good in the stand-up comedy world in the Midwest. I was touring, I was featuring, and I was headlining some clubs and stuff like that. I was really feeling separate from my material, and I was a egomaniac with low self-esteem. It's another word that I hear a lot in these rooms. And then when I moved to LA, of course I moved to LA so I'd be closer to the connections and so forth. But that's where I I crashed and burned. I got out here, I crashed and burned. I started to, I was too egotistical to wait my turn in all of these clubs. I'm like, listen, I'm like, look at these kids. They're going out getting bumped for bigger comedians or more locals. And I just didn't have the patience, man. Like, I was just, I was too proud maybe to network and ask for favors from other people that were in the industry. And then when I did ask for favors, I would be like so agitated and discontent. And I'd just get loaded, and I'd either crush it or I'd bomb. I'd crush it or I'd bomb. I was unpredictable on stage, and I hated myself. And I fell so hardcore out of love with who I had become as a comedian, as a person, man. And so right around then, I remember I was going to I left my wife out of the narrative. We met when I was 27 in Chicago. We were party buddies. She was also very similar in terms of really extreme with spiritual pursuits, but then we'd also party a bunch. And so we were perfect. We would wonderful party buddies who then would also try to like practice such exhausting yoga that we would feel like we purified it. So we were living in LA, getting evicted. I was drinking whiskey every night. I had tried so many times to get sober. I knew I had a problem, but I kept telling myself it's just a weed problem. It's not an alcohol problem. And because I was like, I didn't usually have hangovers. It would just be a couple of drinks or a few drinks, even though it was almost every night for a decade, except for when I was white knuckling it. But it was alcohol. Every time I relapsed, it was alcohol that would cause me to relapse. It was just alcohol. It's not my preference. I know a lot of people who harder drugs or alcohol is their issue, but it was the weed that took them out. But for me, it was, I'd have a drink and boom, I'd be back to smoking endless weed. And for like, it could be New Year's Day, and it's my commitment, my resolution. And then I have a drink, and then I'm stoned, and I'm like, I'll wait till next year, right? And so I started to reconnect with something that I'd done super, super intently when I was. I skateboarded every day from 1979 until 94 or something like that. I skated all the time, and in the East Coast I was, it was back in the day. It was back in the 90s. I was decent. I was a street skater. I wasn't doing transition, just ledges and a lot of big Nodus Coppice type stuff. And but when I discovered playing in bands, played music, and when I discovered stand-up comedy and girls and drugs and alcohol, I left the skating behind. But when I turned 40, or just before 40, I was like 38 years old. I was living in Hollywood. My wife and I were evicted, living in a car. I was having this horrible job, fundraising for progressive causes, and just crushing my soul, dude. And a buddy of mine was like, I was walking from Hollywood to Koreatown each day, and he gave me an old skateboard, and like I just reconnected with something, man. Like, and that was still using. But my wife would be, hoping that if we were house sitting for somebody, or because actors would go away and we'd house sit, or I'd be in the car and she'd be like, "Oh, have a good show," and I'd go to the show hoping that I'm going to put bread on our table, or I'm going to get us a table. And I'd go to the show, I'd go and I'd look at the lineup, and I'd be like, "Fuck this, man." And I just go and I'd skateboard till 4 a.m, 3 a.m. And I just little flip tricks, and just like I was reconnecting with the feeling of art that I lost, that I initially got me interested in conveying feelings and using words to like just the art of feeling something and being focused at it, and troubleshooting and feeling success on a really small scale. And so, that's when I started, getting jobs that I might care for, like that might have helped. I got like an intern for some Comedy Central shows, broke my wrist, couldn't do it, like I started breaking everything skateboarding. And so just back to being in the old the old car, the old temporary housing and all that. So dude, when I came into the 12-step rooms when I was 40 years old, and dude, I was so beat, man. I was so beat. I knew I had a problem. I couldn't, and I was so grateful that my alcoholism, the drinking of actual alcohol had gotten so pronounced that that I couldn't stay away from weed. I was so like, because initially I didn't have a problem with alcohol, but I could never stay sober from anything if I was dabbling in alcohol. And I'm actually grateful that my alcohol consumption got to the point. The night before I got sober, my last time I used was December 8th, 2013. So coming up on 8 years. The last time I used, we were in our car, we're living in a car. It stank. All I wanted to do was go practice tray flips. We're living in a car. I'm stinking. I had like $6 on me and $15 in the bank, and my whole plan for life was to go deposit the 6 so I could get a 20 out, so I could go to the dispensary, get a cheap gram, sell half of it to my buddy, so I could have enough money to get whiskey on a taco. And that was my plan. And this was like, dude, I'm isolated. Friends were calling and I wouldn't answer the phone. Bookers were calling. Bookers were booking me still, and I would forget that they booked me because I was so loaded. And dude, we went to church, and we hadn't been going to church, but we went to church, and usually I'm too like, well, God's within me. Why would I pray? Why would I say it? Why don't I set my attention to be aware? I got down on my knees on the 8th. I got down on my knees and I said, like I'm beat, man. Like I need something. I was too ashamed to go. I tried doing MA and AA online. I was like, this is too extreme. And but what's like not extreme about the way that I live my life, like trying to suicide myself by jumping off cliffs, running from the feds, jumping trains all over the country. And just, dude, I was beat, man. I said a prayer, went outside after the church, smoked my last weed, and I went into an MA meeting the next day. And man, like going into the meeting now, I'll kind of switch gears a little bit, was step one. I'm so grateful that I had 26 years of step one homework. I don't know how, like, I don't know how, like, I know people who get young sober. I'm just like, I had to get beat up. I had to beat myself up. I had to take myself down. And I had, so step one was like, yes, I'm powerless over alcohol. I'm powerless over marijuana. And my life had become unmanageable when I heard someone once say that unmanageability is when your circumstances fall below your standards, right? It's kind of an interesting way. You might know the dude, Jonathan Kay, used to go to Bread and Roses bunch. He died 6 years ago or something like that from cancer. But yeah, I kind of said that. So my circumstances fell below my standards. I kept lowering my standards. And not only was it like, oh, I would have written a novel or a screenplay, but I started running haiku, right? Like I kept lowering my standards, but it was causing me freaking pain and suffering. And so I knew my life was unmanageable. That's the definition of unmanageability, aside from the fact of being like 80 grand in debt, having nothing, and again, like a lot of dental issues. And so ironically, my sponsor is a dentist. And so, right.
Of course
I know. And he's so unlike me too, man. He's like, I got somebody, I want someone like me. I want someone who skates. I want someone who, you know, he listens to the same music I listen to, acts the same way I act. And I got somebody, I'm so glad initially I got a sponsor like that. And very much like me, he didn't show up for step work. And he just was not a good fit. But man, my sponsor's name is Kevin, and he's very structured. He's like, do the stuff, take contra action, do this, do that, call me, make it commitments, show up when you don't want to show up, the stuff we hear that wasn't my, like, he's like, can you go to the Friday night meeting? And I had this thing, I'd go to Fairfax High every Friday night. I had to skate the mani pad. I had to just skate all but I started to change my patterns and my routines to show up. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful I did. So when I did the steps, man, my life was unmanageable. I knew I was powerless. And then I'm going to pause again right here on step 1. And say, like, another aspect about me being powerless over drugs and alcohol is, even today, like almost 8 years later, it's, yes, I hear like a Bob Marley song, or sometimes when I'm bombing ahead, when I'm skating or doing something and the sun's just right, it's like, it's actually Humidity and Grateful Dead songs that get me, that combination. Like I feel a craving to get loaded, right? To get out of my mind. It passes super quickly. It usually passes pretty quickly. And I ground myself into the tools. But I'll say, even today, I'm 100% powerless over alcohol and 100% powerless over weed. That doesn't mean I'm going to get sucked into a dispensary, right? Unless I get, like, I could see myself getting enough, right? And then being like, I got to create my own higher power. I got to create my own dopamine. Like, I've stopped being of service. I don't feel God anymore. Yeah, I could see myself getting that miserable, but fortunately, I have sponsees and I have commitments and I have fellows that keep me going more than the meditation community did, because this is very specific to get out of your head, be of service, and I generate that feeling of love by being of service, right? And if I'm not feeling God, if it doesn't feel like mystical or like a coincidence, or I don't see it in the mundane, it's love in action, man. It's like a generator. It's like one of those crank generators, right? So, but I'm generally not getting sucked into a dispensary or a liquor store, and the reason I say, like, I'm powerless over weed or alcohol is because I am 100% powerless over the the chemical properties of it. I'm powerless over that. It's the reality of THC or the indica, whatever, is it was a downer. It never made me a better communicator. The reality of alcohol is it made me sloppy. It made me just the chemicals in my body. I am not like whatever. Like, there's a story about mystical swamis that took acid when the Beatles gave it to them and it didn't affect them. That's not me, man. Like, the effects of those, I'm powerless over what it does to me. Even if I took it once and then I would have another 10 years of sobriety. Like, it's just not what I wanted it to be. Step 2 and step 3, man. Whew. To me, doing step 2 was more like a chiropractic adjustment. I felt like I was so close. I already believed in higher power. It was something in me, or it was right there on the other side of the plexiglass. But I realized when I did step 2, my sponsor and I, we did step 2, was that was probably the biggest, like, oh, like I got like this almost this like Kundalini wake up thing, because I realized, man, like I had the higher power, but my version of higher power was that it was some a-hole in like it was here and it loved me, but in a way it was some dude. And I usually like in a negative way, like up in the penthouse of some executive suite. And he'll hear my feedback about life on earth after I'm dead. Right. So I'm separated. And until then, I gotta, I have to be baffling and powerful, and I have to outsmart the competition to get the love, to get the gigs, to get the money, I have to be more lovable. I have to, try, because I've never really been into whatever. Like I usually try to manipulate people by being a people pleaser and getting the love. So I'm like, but I have to outdo it more than the other people. I have to be more patient, or I have to be slow and steady with such patience. Anyhow, but that was my version of higher power, is manipulative, man. And I really didn't really stop to realize even though intellectually it's right here with me, but it is right here. It is right here with me. It's right here. It's not after. It's not some assessment. I'd read a lot of Jonathan Livingston Seagull and Richard Bachlo's books. It's like the seagull tries his hardest to fly like a hawk, and then he dies, and after death he gets the upgrade. And so I started to feel moment to moment acceptance of higher power, and not because I was away meditating, not because I was doing something that just happened to be really intense and looked like a monk. And dude, so like the reality of higher power for me is like, I was not in the best mood when you and I met at that rally, right? And yet, like, I saw your videos when I was my first 2 years of sobriety. Like, I was close to relapse a bunch. I hated every time I got sober, I would push it away like a pendulum, and I'd be like sober with vengeance for a little while, but then the pendulum would hit me again, and I'd relapse, and with vengeance. So after my initial pink cloud of being sober, man, like I was like, man, I just want to break. I started doing all the negative, like fault finding with the program and the people, and like these amends. Really, I got to make these amends, and man, like, and since we were so ruined financially, I was picking up these odd jobs, working tons and tons of hours and hustling, and sometimes I wouldn't have an odd job, and they're always like getting people to sign petitions and stuff like that. And geez, man, sometimes I would just go and I'd spend the day at the library watching your videos. I'd be like, I can't, man. Like, my wife thinks I'm out hustling work, but I just got to stop right now. And I got to I got to pause for the cause, was something you were saying back then. I don't know if I'm still saying that, but I just, so when I first saw your videos, man, like you helped me, those videos helped me get through. And I'll get back to what I was talking about, like wasn't in a good mood at the rally and how that relates to higher power. But when I was, dude, I get tangential sometimes and I forget where I was going, excuse me. So I'll just get back to the rally. Oh yeah, here's what I was gonna say, man, is like when I saw your videos, and they helped me a lot, man. Like I wanted to find, initially one of my skate buddies was like, oh, you got to check out Guy Mariano, and you got to check out these, mentioned some sober skaters. And so I was just looking for interviews from them, and I had no idea who you were or what you were all about. But I watched some of your videos, and I was like, oh my gosh, this dude's sober too. And I felt like this dude's my brother. Like when I saw your videos, like, this guy is such my brother. Like you're like so many things in common. Some of the things I already referenced today, like whatever, Santa Cruz, back injuries, healing our back through reconditioning the way we move, and also our associations with the pain, recovery, like freaking skating, dude. And yet, you know, like initially, like years ago when I was like a secretary, I was like, oh, I gotta find Hamish. We gotta be a speaker. I don't know, maybe we'll go skating and all that. And I was like, you know, if he's such my brother, I don't need to seek him out. You know, I'm not gonna be a fanboy, right? Like it's just like connected without felt without stress, I guess, or like trying to force it or anything. But so to me, when I was saying like connecting with higher power, like it's always right here, and like that I can connect to right now, even though it might not feel like an amazing coincidence, or like one of my friends, oh, it feels like a blowjob or something. Like it might not always feel like that. Sometimes it does feel like a rush, like whoa, but in little ways, man, like I show up, like I felt like I needed to show up to that rally, and I canceled some work and so forth, but it was like just meeting you, dude. Just seeing like, oh my gosh, that's the illusion. Like you were there, dude, and it was like, to me, that was a nudge from the higher power, right? Being like, this is a brother, and I had no idea that I've watched more of your podcast in the last couple of weeks since we met than I had in the past, like whatever pandemic and so forth. So I had no idea that you would, you know, possibly even be of that whatever mind to be like, you know, we want some freedom here. So that was kind of cool, man. It was like, yeah, like all of a sudden I have a few brothers in fellowship who are also not extremists politically, but you know, but we want to sort of follow our heart, and you know, like some of the direction that some of the like the mandates and stuff are going in. So but you know, to see someone like yourself who helped me so much, especially in early sobriety, and be able to freaking say hi to you, like to me that was like, it really set it, like I needed it. I guess God knew that I needed to see a brother, and just kind of gave me a lift, right, for the last couple of weeks. So yeah.
Right on, Jeb. No, it's interesting how it all works. I mean, just to hear that, you know, when I pushed the button was the same thing. I called out to God, like, what am I supposed to do? You push the button. I don't know. You never know how this thing works, right?
Yeah.
To just hear that, and just kind of, it comes full circle where, you know, here you are on the thing. It's more proof.
Yeah, dude.
That God's working. It's funny because I see that, you know, some of the people in the chat are, again, when you truly follow the lead of the psychedelic spell, right? When you have to come back home and find out where what the true psychedelic experience is, which is like this experience without anything, just in it, present, 100%. You ever check out any Neil Kramer?
No, man.
Neil Kramer's the man, dude. He talks a lot about the vacation from reality. And that we do all these things they're just vacations. They're not real, even though we think they're these very powerful psychedelic experiences. And I was bending mountains and jumping over mountain ranges and doing all this stuff and seeing the elves and the whole thing. It's just a vacation from this thing, which is super hard to stay focused on because it doesn't stop, right? Like it doesn't, there is no separation, right? It's, I get up and there I am, and I'm with myself all day long. And because I'm sober, I don't really have any way to like escape it and go on vacation from it. I can check out in all sorts of different ways. I think we find new addictive properties, right? And some of them are better. The skateboarding's better than you know, smoking weed all day. And it's I always like to say on these things is, you know, sobriety is the ultimate bong hit, man.
It is. Yeah.
You know, I remember when the weed turned on me. I remember when it all turned on me, man. And it does. If you're really paying attention on the journey of this thing, it does tell you, like, you've been here long enough. Now it's time to go back. Have you seen the movie Bliss?
Yeah.
It's like that. Like you get to this point where you don't know how beaten down you are, even though you know, and you're like aware.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's funny, you know, why we don't dwell on the past, but we don't shut the door on it, right? Like, it's super important to stay like in that reminder of like, no, it was the clothes didn't fit, nothing fit. It was all sort of like very run down. And even though it was still moving along, it was brutal. The self-built cage, right? The self-built cage of freedom that you think that you think that you're rebelling. I think that was like the big heads up, because I saw a lot of people like chiming in about Terrence McKenna and you know, the stoned ape, right? And like all these things have some validity, but at the end is where I think I had to do a deep dive on a lot of this was, you know, I talked about it before, is the conspiracy of the blue books, right? For me, and when you were talking about the kind of the, I'm sober now, I'm sort of frustrated with what is this that I'm involved with, and I think part of the true journey of sobriety is to dig into it and go, what is this that I'm part of? What is this? Like, I know people that are 20 plus years sober that have never asked that question.
Right.
Like, what is this? They can tell you about the Oxford group and Bill and Ted's fabulous journey of sobriety and Abby and what they're up to and what went on in Akron, Ohio, and this and that. But yet they haven't really like done the deep dive and go, where did this book actually come from, and who is running this psychedelic world of the weaponized anthropology, that, because it was a trap. Like it gave me enough, you know, it gave me enough. I talk about it like a lot is like, I remember seeing it at a Fish show once. I remember it, and it very much was like the Truman Show. Like, I could see the dome, the firmament, right? And I think people get all real like I think the firmament's in our own perception of spirituality. Like, I thought I was in it, and then I understood. Once I got sober, I realized that it had been the drugs that were actually the cage of, and it did enough this and that and whoa and wow and gnarly that I couldn't see past it. And then I got sober and I was like, oh, whoa, dude, it's like, it's so much deeper. Like those, like that, and again, I mean, if you've watched the thing, I always describe it as like psychedelics are like playing in a sandbox, right? Like playing and making sandcastles, and you can make some really wild sandcastles. You can watch those competitions of mermaids and airplanes and all sorts of stuff you can do with sand. And then you get sober and realize you get to be like the architect of the universe. Like you get to like, you can create life and all of this stuff where you were like, I always just to you psychedelics out there. It's like, dude, once you get sober, you get to really see like how limited you were in that construct, and that it was very much a managed thing, which is ironic for people like us that were worried about trying to get free, right?
Totally.
I'm trying to get out, and then you're like, you know, the revolution doesn't come in a bottle, right? It's something much deeper, where it's two random people standing in the middle of a field full of thousands talking about freedom and being like, well, this is where it led us to. Is this moment right here? Because can you imagine being loaded through this right now?
No, dude.
It's the movie the craziest. I can barely handle it stone cold sober with God. It's so intense.
It's enough. I know.
It's gnarly, man. And you know, we're all gotta like, well, that was sort of where this thing was a response to, is, you know, for me, you know, I was like, to watch AA shut its doors was you know, as a dude who put in the miles
Mhm.
in AA and did the thing, is like when the doors shut last year, I was pretty shocked that that it allowed itself to, you know, you hear, you know, the
Mhm.
World War II and the dudes in the foxholes and
Right, yeah.
the dogs, you know,
Right,
this
yeah.
thing that, you know, you get into this thing again, the conspiracy of the blue books is when it shut its doors and we were left on our own to figure it out. And then it was Zoom, and it was like, I don't even need to wear pants, and I can have my wife bringing me food. Like,
And I can be eating while I'm doing it. And I'm,
this ain't I would literally sit here and water my garden like during, and I was like, this is dumb. And I go, and I remember being back to where I was, is like, when I was first getting sober, I wouldn't have had a phone. I wouldn't have had a laptop. If you had told me dial into Zoom, I would have been like, when I got to AA, I was so against technology. Like, I didn't have a phone.
Yeah, you were up in those hills there outside of Malibu.
I was hiding out. I had some little flip phone thing my mom gave me to keep, so I could call SOS or something, so she could call me or whatever it was. But when I came in, like, if those dudes, if I'd come in and they had been like, dude, there's a Zoom meeting over here, I would have been. And so I have to admit, like, for me, that's what this is a response to. I was like, I believe the 164 whatever pages, like, they're the deal. This book works. It really does.
It works, man.
Yeah. But I realized over the course of this journey, since the doors closed, a lot of people died, man. Like, they killed a lot of people by allowing and then I would bump into people and I'd be like, we're not pushing back on this. They're like, no, we're anonymous. The outside issues. I go, this isn't an outside issue, dude. Like, like, this isn't an outside issue, dude. What's going on out here? Because they shut the doors.
Right. Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, So for me, like, for me to do this with you is just to sit here for, you know, an hour and listen to you, dude. Like, so I was like, dude, I was just sit back and listen, because it's usually just me talking into outer space and just like counting on that God this is going to where God needs it. Some dude in the library, you know, who's like, oh, whatever, dude. And so I'm super. So God intervened to get this, and now listening to you and knowing you're in my city, dude, it's like we've established a different level of then. It's interesting how it works, you know, like it is a magical journey, man. And I, you know, like I will always be an AA'er. I don't know if I'm a AA'er though anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll never give $1 to the fellowship again, like, on that like weird level, dude. Like, when I saw the building up in San Francisco, that was where what was that, man? So I was up on Market Street, up at that protest where they locked up that black dude, the Antifa guys beat up the black guy. And I was there and I was with my sober buddy, who's one of the tribe. And I was sitting on Market Street, and if you can Google Earth it, right next to Twitter is like the AA building on Market Street, prime real estate, with a giant like 8-foot gold embossed circle with the triangle. And I looked at the dude and I'm like, what is not in the Tenderloin, dude, like front and center next to the Twitter headquarters office. And I was like, this is what they're doing with our money. I go, I just got done calling AA to get, and they didn't have any, like, it was 9 months into this thing and they didn't have any beds anywhere. Like, I was calling, I had a wet one, like a real wet one. Some dude called me from a hotel room. I'm gonna die. And they're like, take him to the hospital. I go, the guy just left the hospital. Like, they don't know what to do. Like, what are we doing here? And they were like, I don't know. It was madness. So this was my believing response as a dude who's like, we're on our own, kind of in a weird way. We're like this is how my response to it, to stay in the game. You're still in the game, man. But it's gnarly. Like, I don't have the resources of it like I did before.
you know, they say principles before personalities. So I had like the principles of recovery and share and honesty, the stuff that can inspire us to keep our conscience clear, keep our connection to higher power, to avoid relapse, and of course to spread community. That's still in me. I still feel that, and that's the principles, right? But honestly, everything I have said is honest. So I hate it when I say honestly, because it's all honest. So I just want to say, bluntly speaking, though.
Spellcaster word.
What was that?
It's like a spellcaster word.
Yeah.
That I'm not being honest.
So I guess something that I haven't said out loud too often is whether it becomes more in person than it is now. I'm hungering. Like I intend to go to some of my old home groups, and I intend to find new groups in person. I've been doing Zoom ones too, but whether it's in person or Zoom, I'm having a hard time. I'm having a little bit of a hard time focusing on the principles through some of the personalities. There, I said it. Like it's probably the oldest school in the AA book. But like, I guess practically speaking, what I mean by that is, I just been so like, you know, going to like an in-person meeting, everyone being like, are you vaccinated? Okay.
No, this is what this is like, again, this is where I bumped into the thing. It's like, I used to do a lot of prime time and stuff like that. It's like, we as alcoholics and drug addicts, we suffer from a daily affliction that could kill us at any given moment, dude. Sure. Like we're on our second life. We got a second chance at this deal. We're sober and we're hanging on to sobriety like drowning men, right? Like, and women. And so when I see these people like I ain't afraid of the coof. I'm afraid of the liquor store that will kill me. Totally. I know that, and you guys doing this, how are we being of service to, like, so when you talk about the principles and the personalities, to have watched people that were once upon a time like smoking crack and smoking dicks, and now they're like hiding in their masks, like, oh my God, I'm gonna get sick from you 6 feet. I go, no, dude, like you've lost the plot, dude, because like that's insanity, dude. You're powerless, I thought, dude, and your life's unmanageable. So why are you worried about it, dude? If you drop dead in this AA meeting from giving me a hug, dude, like that's God's will, dude. So like, it's weird. Like that's what I mean. It's like we're not normies.
Nah, dude.
Like, we're dudes who have torn our life to ribbons, and you've been in hospitals, jails, and chained ourselves to things and done the lunacy. So like, I can't do this. I can't do that, dude. I won't do it.
We're gonna wait till the booster comes out before we do step 4.
No, like I was sitting on one of these the last Zoom meeting I ever did. I was sitting on there, and there was like a celebrity sober guy, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I just went, I was like, I go, you guys are a bunch of pussies. Like, where's the newcomer? Where is the dude who walked in off the door? Because this is bullshit, man. And fuck you guys. You guys are so full of it, and you're so sober, you forgot what it is to be like loaded, dude. And you're sitting in your little Zoom and your little like Malibu Richie Rich like sobriety thing. Like, nah, dude. Like, you know, I don't know. That's me being judgmental, right? That's me. That's me, you know, being in resentment and all that kind of stuff. So that's me being truthful with it. Like, I have a resentment against this phase of.
As do I, and I have to figure it out. We have like some like in-person bonfire meetings and stuff that's not, you know, in the directory and stuff like that. It's like, are you vaccinated? You know, like, or humble bragging about the whole, I kept 6 feet away, but the other guy didn't. I'm like, dude, I love you guys.
Well, that's what's trippy. This started from some sober dudes from Primetime. We're doing a year ago. We're doing we would read Sermon on the Mount in their backyard. Remember, we were still all locked down like a year ago. Weird. We would read Sermon on the Mount with the bonfire going, like 30 people, and they would live broadcast it. And his whole thing was, we're not anonymous anymore.
Right.
Like, anonymity almost killed us all. So we're not anonymous. We're broadcasting this thing out. We're doing Sermon on the Mount, and like normal people would show up who wanted to get to God.
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, oh, I get what you're doing here, dude. This is like, you're putting it out into the ether where God exists in this modern space, not hidden in some thing. Like, it's just, no, there it is, dude. Like, because I found that, like, I got a message from a woman, I believe it was a woman, going, you know, I watch the sober streams, but I realized that, like, I have to deal with my weight problem.
Right.
And like, you've gotten me to go back to Overeaters Anonymous. And that's where, like, I go, oh, it's bigger than just us. As I pickled this, I go, people are suffering in real ways. And but with that said, as dinner's getting finished, we're running late. So Jeb, on this is now that we're bros on a different level, dude, we should get together and skate.
Definitely.
Sure. And we got to fight the man too.
Yeah, we do, man.
I just got my Earth First direct action manual again. So, I'm getting ready for an action, brother.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
so you know the score, dude, which is good to know.
What's that?
You know the score with running an action, dude.
Yes. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
We needed to find that out about each other tonight too. But
Well,
so look, what I like to do at the end here is just kind of do this. This is how I kind of go out is, why don't you lead us in a serenity prayer, and then I give the final little chit chat of hope.
All right. This will be the we version.
Okay.
God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Thank you. Amen. So look, anyone out there is your life matters, and you may not be suffering from drugs and alcohol or too many Oreo cookies. You might be suicidal. And if you're especially suicidal, please call suicide prevention line. Talk to someone, dude. People don't kill themselves who actually talk to someone and ask someone for help. And look, people want to help. You're not alone. Your life is super valuable. And if you're suffering out there with mental health issues, there's no shame in asking for help and seeking help. And if you're struggling in any other way, please just reach out. And wherever you are in the North America of the United States of America, I'm coming, Bird. You can type in your city AA central office, and you'll get some dudes or women like us that just want to help you out. So you're not alone. Sobriety is a team sport. I highly advise you to get with a group of people and just get it going, dude. Every life counts right now, dude. That's the word, right? So Jeb, thank you for sharing your story and your hope. And I want to ask you back to do this again, dude. This was good.
I'll get to step 3 next time.
All right, brother. All right. Thank you. God bless, and have a beautiful evening.
All right. Thanks.
And hey, and wait, I owe big thanks to, we got some support on the backside from Forgotten Aliens. I really appreciate that, the sponsorship of tonight's live stream. So I appreciate all of this. Thank you, Jeb.
All right. Thank you. Peace.
Good night. God bless.
God bless.